Hello and welcome to our town hall. This is our second town hall this year. My name is Tim Hobson, for those of you who don't know me. And with us we have Debbie Eisen, Brian Barty, Pam Rossman, and Chase Koska from our chair leads, if you will. So as we typically do, we go through what are all the highlights, what are all the things going on in the life of the church, what's coming up, looking at all the various different activities and things like that. And then at the very end, as we always do, we open it up for Q&A. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with missions.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm Debbie Eisen, like Tim said, and I co-chair the mission committee with Leslie Harris and a ton of really amazing volunteers. Isn't it close enough? Sorry. And a ton of really amazing volunteers. So our missional areas, you can see them on the screen. We do blood drives. We have one coming up. Family Promise, Family Promise is helping families that are experiencing homelessness. Historically, they would travel from church to church. Now with COVID, that's not happening, but we are still supporting them. They do have a place to stay, and we provide meals. And so our church rotates through with the other churches. We'll let you know when it's time and we need meals. The First Church PX, if you've missed this, I'm not sure how, but Bill Downs helps lead the First Church PX. And we send care packages to any deployed family members from our church, as well as supporting the Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. I know they just got some of our communion cups. Hopefully Bill sent instructions on how to open them. God's Food Pantry is a food pantry in Plano over on 14th Street near the Salvation Army. That's what the big box out in the gathering area is. So please know that that's there for you every week. When you come, please bring food to help support that important mission. Hope Restored Missions is an organization that's in Plano that helps people that are homeless as well. We do care packages for them. We do, you'll see a drive for needs that they have, and so we'll keep you up to date on those. Memorial Elementary, we help mentor the third graders at Memorial. If a child can't read effectively when they're in third grade, they will struggle for the rest of their lives, and so mentoring with Memorial is super important. We also support the North Texas Food Bank, and we have the North Texas Food Bank will be here soon with their truck out in the parking lot. People are able to drive through and get their meals right here. They don't have to go to the actual food bank anymore and pick up. There's more and more of those kinds of things that the North Texas Food Bank is doing, where they're doing outreach directly in the community, and we're glad to let them use our parking lot and our volunteers to help pack those cars full of food. People Who Love People is exactly what it says. It is a group of people who love other people. Many of you support People Who Love People. Thank you very much for that. It is a group of people that meet every Monday and every Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. and we help feed the homeless in Plano because we have homeless in Plano. It's across the street from the DART station there on Parker Road by the Day Labor Center. One thing I will say about People Who Love People is Stacy Spears has been leading an initiative for eggs. So many of you that have chickens, thank you for your egg donations. Stacy stayed up and boiled a lot of eggs because we try to have 200 every Monday and every Thursday. So that Ruby Hernandez and Jill, I know, were here and they made burritos last week, breakfast burritos. So they were able to provide 100 breakfast burritos last week. The bad news is that we had 300 meals in the freezer and the freezer went out. So if any of you feel so inclined, we would love some donations and some help there with People Who Love People. Plano overnight warming stations. Obviously, we don't need to be warm right now, any warmer. But that is, we work with the Salvation Army in East Plano, and when the temperature drops below a certain degree, they go around and pick up the homeless and then have them at the Salvation Army so that they can stay inside and stay warm. And again, that's kind of a rotational thing, so it's not every single time. Our church is on a rotation for that. Reach Out Honduras is another group that's probably our only international mission that we support other than Bill's PX and UMCOR. And that is, there's a school in Honduras that we help support, Send Hope. Many of you that helped pack meals 2 weeks ago during Mission Together, that is part of Reach Out Honduras, and those meals will go right there to help those people in need, those students. You can also volunteer and adopt a child through that program and be a pen pal, that sort of thing, and help them, with scholarships for school and things that they need directly in Honduras. And then Wellspring Counseling Center is actually right here in the church. Many people don't realize that that's a mission of the church. Wellspring is just upstairs. We have counselors. You pay based upon your income, so it's a sliding scale. And given where we are with COVID and all the things that have been going on, lots of people have needed lots of support. So thank you for continuing to support that mission. Mission Together that I just mentioned was held April 24th. We did, I'm not going to read every single thing that we did in the interest of time, but what I will tell you is this church on one Sunday touched 7,667 lives in 2 hours. You did that. And special thanks to Leslie Harris, because I was traveling for my job and I did nothing to help her. So, upcoming events, we have the North Texas Food Bank that I mentioned, and that's the 19th. All these opportunities are on the church website for you to sign up to volunteer. Carter Blood Drive, please give the gift of life. If you are able to donate, please do so. Many of our church members have actually been beneficiaries of blood donations. And it's super important, and the blood banks continue. I don't know why, but we continue to be critically low with blood, as many people are just not donating, and so if you're able to do that, please do so. And then way out in the future is the community yard sale, and that's October 15th, so that will be our 3rd yard sale. You rent a space out in the parking lot and sell your stuff, and the $35 that you pay for your parking space benefits the missions of this church. So thank you for all of you that have volunteered or have bought a space. And then our mission market, we will have that again December 10th and 11th. Mission market actually supports missions all over the world. They ship us their items and we sell it on behalf of them and send them a check. And makes it really easy on the organization. And it gives us all the opportunity to shop for things that, that are fair trade or ethically sourced, is how I'll say that. So it's important. It's important for those missions. They depend on us, so thank you for your support. One other thing I do want to call out, we've raised over $45,000 for Ukraine, and you see the sign out front. And people don't necessarily understand what that means. And so I went out on the internet and I looked it up. And our money went to UMCOR. So UMCOR funds are being used right now in southeastern Ukraine and western Ukraine to support the basic human needs of those people that are on the move and are trying to get safe. There are shelters, there are meals, there are all the things that people need, and our church has been so giving in supporting that mission, and so I wanted to call that out. I know you see that it just says Ukraine, but it is going to UMCOR. So thank you all very much, and I'm passing it to Tim.
Thank you, Debbie. Mark, if you'll go ahead and pull up the slides for youth and children's. So we are preparing for what will be a very full and very busy summer schedule for both children and youth. We just finished honoring 10 of our seniors, or we will be honoring next weekend 10 of our seniors who are graduating. And I believe this Sunday we had 9 confirmands who we also celebrated. They're joining the church officially, so that's awesome. We also had our wonderful musical that just performed a couple of weeks ago called The Bigger Picture. I hope you got to see it. It is such a wonderful message of hope. If you didn't get to see it, I'm trying to twist Robin and Kim's arm to have another performance before they take it on the road in a couple of weeks. So they are taking this on choir tour where they're going to Arkansas and Kansas and Missouri, and they will be sharing this message with other congregations as part of that choir tour and that mission outreach. VBS will be taking place the week after, June 13th to 17th, so that's for our children. We do need plenty of adult volunteers as well as youth volunteers, so if you haven't signed up, please sign up to help with that. I know these kids love it when they have these adults and youth participating in VBS with them. It is such a special experience to be able to give that love to these children who are growing in the faith or learning about faith for the first time, to share your witness with them. And following VBS each day, they'll have the after VBS activities. These will be youth activities for youth going into 6th grade through seniors who just graduated. So they'll kind of have their own separate special time in the afternoon evenings where they'll doing special events. Next slide. Oh, thanks, Mark. Youth also have a junior high and senior high mission trip. That's going to Colorado towards the end of June. So junior high is going one week, senior high is going the next. And we will also have our children and youth attending Bridgeport Camp. So that's the summer camping activity for children, middle school, and high school. We have them going to Children's Camp number 4, which is towards the end of July, and then senior high is around July 4th that week. Junior high, I don't remember the dates, but we can get those to you if you need them. We will continue to have Sunday morning gatherings, and they are going to resume evening activities this fall, so they do have quite a lot of planning of things coming up, especially as the fall kicks off in the new school year. So be looking forward for those things. Next, Mark. All right, trustees.
Thanks, Tim. Good evening. My name is Brian Bartee, and I'm the current chair of the Board of Trustees. As trustees, our mission is to try and act as good stewards of church property and church assets. As such, we made a couple of improvements, one of which is replacement of the outdoor parking area lights with LED lights. They were ballast lights. A lot of them had gone out, and it was really a bit of a safety issue, as if you'd been out there before. It's pretty dark. So in using the LED lights, it's more energy saving and it's brighter. The landscape and lighting team, headed by Preston, weeded and cleaned out the flower bed around the bell tower. It's still a work in progress, but I think it had been about 5 or 6 years since that had been addressed, so glad to see progress there. The day program is busy updating carpet, paint, and tile, so you may see some newish looking areas around. That's thanks to the day program. I also wanted to mention that thanks to your generosity with the Light of the World program, fundraising program, we have raised, as of today, over $50,000. And that's to be used for additional church improvements, one of which was some wayfinding signage out front. Many of you have probably experienced or had guests that haven't been able to find the entrance to the church. It's kind of a lost situation out there. So we're going to have some bright signage that will help guide the way for everybody, and that should be coming in the next few months. And in addition to that, we hope to have some interior signs as well that will help guide the way, so guests and even current members will be able to find their way around the church. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. I'm Chase Koska. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. There was a request at the last town hall meeting for a list of our membership. So I went ahead and made a slide of that. The 7 members that you see there are the Finance Committee members that are just committee members. The second slide, you'll see these are representatives from other committees, be it SPRC or, yeah, I'm at a loss for words, but other groups, and that was fun. I'll move on to the budget. The budget this year is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. In the past, we've done something called a zero-based budget, where we essentially say these are the expenses that we expect to incur this year, and we just hope that our income will match it at the end of the year. This year we did what's called a faith-based budget. It's a deficit budget, essentially. And what this means is we looked at our expenses for the year and what we expect them to be. We looked at our income based on pledging, and in the end, we had a deficit of $82,000, almost $83,000 in our budget. What's the takeaway from this? This is going to keep us proactive, if you will. We're not just hoping at the end of the year that everything matches up and that we're ahead. We're keeping an eye on it from the get-go, running leaner on expenses, looking for more revenue and income streams, bringing in more membership so that we're not stuck with this surprise at the end of the year, if you will. And as of the end of April, and these numbers are slightly off because I didn't have the final numbers for this slide, but as of the end of April, you can see our income is at $676,000. Our expenses are at $668,000, so it's a net $800. We're on top. We're in the black. We're not in the red. The actual number at this point is actually $11,000, so we're doing even better than what you see there. The expenses, I had asterisk. We had some more expenses on the interior of the church than we projected this year. Had it not been for those certain things that we'd kind of put a Band-Aid on over the past few years that really did need to be replaced this year, had it not been for those, we'd probably be at about $20,000 to $30,000 in the black right now. So, and then at the last town hall, I pointed out what our mortgage situation was. As of the end of March, as you can see, we have a balance of $3.6 million, and I specifically said if anyone else still needs to pay up on their pledge for the Our Home campaign that started in 2018, please do so. As you can see there, we got another $37,000 in that went directly down to down payment of our mortgage. So we're looking good there. I guess Brian and Trustees kind of just went over this, but you can see the Light the Way campaign and the end result of it. As he said, as of today, we're at about $51,000 on funds brought in from that mini campaign. Yeah, and that's all.
Good evening. I'm Pam Rossman. I'm the SPRC chair this year, and our last meeting was in January, and we have had a new hire in between then and now. So Colin Regal is just a delightful person. If y'all have not met her yet, you need to. She is a native from California. We're not going to hold that against her because she's been here 16 years, so we're going to give her grace for that. She is our new office manager, which is replacing Stacy Spears. She is an avid musical person. She loves musical theater. She just loves music in general. In fact, she studied at the musical theater at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York. So God has been really good, and He brought her to Texas. She has spent the last 10 years working with a couple of other United Methodist churches with the preschool programs. So she is just such a fun person. Y'all really, if you haven't talked to her, you need to. She does have 2 children. They're both sophomores. One just happens to be at Arkansas Tech, and he is studying it in emergency management. And then she has a sophomore also in high school at Rock Hill High School in Frisco. So she's very, very active. She loves hiking. She loves watching the Cowboys. By the way, if you know me, if I watch a team, they lose, so you're welcome. I don't watch any sports. So I'll let her do all that. She also loves, Broadway musicals. She loves studying God's Word and volunteering with the homeless and spending a lot of time with her boyfriend named Landon. They have a 13-year-old dog, Dixie. She's a lab, and she apparently is a lap dog, and she still is very young at heart. She really is looking forward to continuing meeting our congregation. So if you haven't swung by the office yet, please do, because she is a delightful person. So that's all for right now.
And once you meet Colin, you'll quickly find out that she is the twin of Nancy Bryan. Just saying. They look very much alike. They're not twins, but you'll see the resemblance when you meet her. So covering for Keith Landau, he couldn't be here tonight. He's traveling, so covering church council for him. I think there's a little bit of a conspiracy going on there because I think the last 3 town halls he's been out of town, so I might have to change the date of the next one. Just saying. So we're continuing to work on the land sale and the potential use options there. We're still working with our third partner there. The third partner is called Embry Partners. It's a similar homes for rent type of community. Right now, we've encouraged the broker, to expand and look for other home for sale builders to see what other opportunities are out there. Obviously, the opportunity with Embry is a bit of a long shot given the current master plan of the city of Plano and given where we are in the zoning process. So we'll see what happens there. Time will tell. We just finished a 2-day workshop with the help of Blair Thompson White from Texas Methodist Foundation. And what she did was she helped walk us through kind of some core value exercises and some looking at long-term opportunities, trying to help as a bit of an offshoot of what the C3 team did. So the C3 team is the Courageous Congregations Collaboration. Easier just to say C3. So Kim Rahebi was on the team, Preston Spigner was on the team, I was on the team, Kevin Clanahan, Stacy Witten, and Matt Gaston. We all comprised the team. And we've been working on the last 8 months with TMF, really kind of trying to learn different ways of thinking about, how do we take where we're at now and how do we envision the future and what does that look like? Can you go back one slide? Sorry, Mark. Thank you. So as part of that offshoot, once the C3 team finished their learning and their training, if you will, we basically said, okay, it's time to bring that learning to the church council here at Plano. So we've been working in coordination with church council, plus the staff, plus some additional laity of the church in these workshop sessions, really trying to define what are our core values as First Church Plano, and what are the long-term opportunities that we think we want to pursue, just as as part of the discernment process. Next slide, please. So what we did find, interestingly, was our core values are in line with the Healthy Church Initiative work that was done 4 years ago. And what we came up with as core values was community, service, grace, and faith. And if you know our vision statement, connecting God and grace to self and community, you hear a lot of those words in that vision statement already. So the good thing is identifying those, again, as our core values, they haven't really changed over time, over a 4-year period. And that's a good sign, because your core values is something that it doesn't change. It is part of the DNA of who we are. How we do what we do, that might change as far as the strategies and tactics, but the core values remain the same. So we did some breakout sessions, and we did some what if, and we did a lot of asking of questions. Not so much coming up with answers, not so much coming up with fixes, but just coming up with questions. What are the things we need to be thinking about that we're not thinking about? And so as a continuing work of that, the church council is going to take those questions and continue the discernment process to say, okay, now where do we take this? What of those questions do we need to still work on? Where does that lead us down the path? Some of the key discussions that we had were the difference between being a transactional versus a relational service grace-based church, if you will. In some sense, we tend to do a lot of transactional things with folks, especially outside the church. If you think about all the events that we have, in a sense, it's asking the question, how do we take that relationship and how do we go deeper with it to where it's really an intentional relationship where we're understanding who they are, what their needs are. So that's part of the work that's been done. Another thing key point that came out of it was just being intentional about connecting, especially outside the walls of the church. You know, how do we connect with the community? How do we connect with the college? How do we connect with the neighborhood here, the neighborhood there, our neighbors over, here? How do we connect with people who come to the park? Envisioning all those sorts of things. And then what synergies does that offer then as we think about those things with the missions that we're doing, with the programs that we have, and with the outreach that we're already doing? And so those next steps, that's something the church council is going to be working on and thinking about over the summer months, and that work will continue. Next slide. A couple weeks ago, we had, actually, yeah, it is a couple weeks ago. April 30th was a meeting with Bishop Mike McKee. That was at Grace Avenue United Methodist Church up in Frisco. So there was probably around 200 laity. This was the laity session that the bishop held. So the bishop met with all of the districts that are under his jurisdiction, if you will. And so this was on April 30th was the North Texas Conference laity session. So we had 5 folks attend that session: myself, Keith, Landau, Kevin, Joyce, who's here, Preston is here as well. And the main topics were, as Methodists, what is our identity and how do we claim our identity? What do we believe? We believe we're a grace-based theology, and we're a big tent church. There's room for everybody, right? Big tent means everybody's welcome. There's always room at the table for one more. And then what is our value in connection? So there's big things that are possible. I think COVID certainly didn't help this because it kind of tampered down the amount of conferences and things that were held. And we're just now seeing those church conferences in person being renewed and restarted after a couple of years. But also asking the question, what other connections can we make between churches, and what other things can we be doing even at the conference level or with the conference or with other churches that we can partner in ways that expand our ability to do ministry? And what we can do, basically the bishop said, go slow and be prayerful. This is a discernment process. Obviously, the main focus of this conversation was the split of the United Methodist Church and the Global Methodist Church. And one thing is, whether you've been exposed to it or not, but there are many churches out there that have been exposed to a lot of misinformation or untrue information by the Global Methodist Church or by others with hearsay or other things. And so one thing the bishop asked is just make sure we're checking our sources, getting really what's the truth, what are the real facts, and understanding those things. And that's really what he means by go slow. Don't rush to any sort of conclusions. There is a disaffiliation process that is already in place in the Book of Discipline. But again, that is a spiritual discernment process, and it's not a quick process. It's a fairly lengthy process, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. I can tell you what Bishop McKee said is, look, this conference we're Methodists. We plan on staying Methodists. And one quote that I took away from what the bishop said was, church should not imitate the culture. Church should imitate Christ. And so I firmly believe that, and I hope you believe that too as Methodists. Next slide, please. All right, we're at the time for Q&A. if you do have any questions, please feel free to come up to the mic. Blaine or Joel, if we have any questions online, just holler them out and get us started here.
I think it's on, but I'm not sure. It feels on. Debbie, how can we convey to the congregation that our missions are supported by designated dollars? I'm having conversations with different people, and it seems like that's not common knowledge.
That's something that we've actually struggled with. So missions is not a line item in the church budget. So when you tithe, that is not one of the items that is part of the budget. So missions stands alone. Historically, that was not an issue, right? Because the Balloon Festival generated so much funds for missions, and then, you know, when you don't have it for 3 years, in reality, that's over $100,000 that the different, either the missions, the Boy Scouts, right, we split it up based upon volunteerism. So I don't think that's anything that people know, and Kim, I think that's a good point, that we need to make sure we share that missions is fully funded by the garage sale, and by donations. People can make, you know, specific donations to one of the many. We have many accounts. I promise that Nina will let you know that. We have lots of accounts under missions. So if you're called for something, please know that you can donate directly to that mission. But yeah, it is, to your point, it is not an item in the budget. Maybe that's something when we do budgets, Chase, we can make sure the congregation is, this is where your money goes.
A few weeks ago, we had Ken Wolverton, who did a very informative presentation about not just this church, but churches in general. And as you went through your meetings and things that you were doing, I didn't hear anything that indicated that some of the things he talked about, like the fact that churches are they're not just, we're not just trying to get people into church, but we're in competition with all kinds of other organizations, nonprofits. And I want to know, was there any discussion about that? Were any of the things he brought up something that was taken into account as you were discussing the path forward? Because I have to tell you, when I was chairman of the church council, we started the never-ending planning process, and it sounds like it's continuing. But I'm not seeing that it ever has an end. So if you could comment.
Sure, thanks. That's a good question. I think what we have to ask ourselves is, typically the way we've run the church, right, is it's buildings, butts, and budgets. Let's just be honest. That's typically the way we've thought about it, right? And it's, okay, how can we put more butts in the seats so that we can have more budget so that we can fund the building and the missions of the church, right? And obviously with life just the way it is and the way things have changed and the way things are changing, that means the church has to reimagine how it does what it does and how it connects with the world in ways that are completely different and new. I can tell you, just getting back today from our C3 tour, if you will, we went down to Houston, where we got to see a lot of what we learned in just conversation actually happening in practice. And that gave me a lot of hope, because the sky's the limit, right? I mean, but it starts with asking the right questions of where, you know, I'm going to use the analogy of a dinner table, okay? And it's asking the question, okay, you're at the dinner table. Who's at your table? Who's not at your table? Who would you like to be at your table? Okay, if they're not at your table, how are you going to get them to your table? And it's asking those kind of questions that we've got to figure out how we're going to do that going forward. Those aren't easy questions to answer, and it is a discernment process. It's going to take a little bit of time. I totally hear what you're saying, and I recognize that, because, you know, one of the things we learned this weekend is, you know, churches tend to get stuck in that strategic planning cycle for 2, 3, 4 years or longer, and nothing ever happens. And I think that's one thing as leadership, we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. We need to discern, but then once we discern, we need to pick a path and move forward. And part of that is going to be, okay, if we try something, it may or may not work. And if it doesn't work, okay, let's try something else, in a sense. So we need to be willing to allow ourselves to fail at the same time.
I will tell you, we have 3 families here tonight that are participating with the youth outside that found us through our Easter extravaganza. So they brought their families back and are participating with the youth right now outside. So that made my heart feel good.
No questions from online? Okay. There's a question brewing.
Is that gonna be loud enough? In the sale of property, how far south are we looking at selling? In other words, from the fence line to the parking lot, how much are we looking to sell?
So we're looking at currently it'd be roughly 13 acres of the fence to, I believe it's the driveway.
The same amount we will sell before.
Correct. I'm going to give it that awkward 7 seconds. All right, I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for your questions. Thank you for participating, and thank you for what you bring to the table. If you would bow your heads, please. I want to close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we get to share your love. And God, this love that you have given us, it is too much for us to handle. And so we have to share it. And so God, give us courage, give us strength, give us the insight to find ways to share that love with the community, with those that are around us, with each other, so that we reflect that love, your love. For it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.